Okay, again, and I'll keep it on my site. So if there's any issue with this, if it stops again, oh fucking Google. So the Gaza crisis has been going on for about 4 weeks, and it has claimed nearly 2,000 lives, the vast majority Palestinian civilians. Several Latin American nations have broken ties with Israel or demanded some special attention, like Brazil did. And Brazil accused Israel of using disproportionate force against Palestine, and in response, Israel called Brazil a diplomatic dwarf and mocked them for the 7-1 defeat against Germany. Lucy, you're very entwined with the diplomatic community in Brasilia. How did they take the 7-1 comment and the diplomatic dwarf comment, please?
Well, I think that a lot of people thought that the 7-1 comment was in very bad taste. To mention those two things in the same sentence, the tragedy that's happening in Gaza with a football result, a lot of people were quite shocked, I think, that that the Israeli was it the foreign secretary or the ambassador that he would mention those in the same sentence. It was quite crass and quite bad taste. The diplomatic dwarf comment, I think there was a little bit of a collective wince, but at the same time, it wasn't terribly surprising because Dilma simply hasn't made foreign policy, at least global foreign policy, a very big part of her presidency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some people talk to me about Brazilian interest in the region and the BRIC nations, which would be somehow opposed to this diplomatic dwarf perception. Would you agree that Brazil is more interested in the regional partners and in the BRIC countries than in the rest of the world, or is that something just of this moment?
I think that Dilma is interested in the economy, and I think that she sees in the setting up of the BRICS Bank and the consolidating of ties with the other BRICS countries and with Mercosur an economic advantage to be had. She wants to improve the trade partnership between Brazil and China to make it less uneven. She cares about the economy right now because that's what's going to get her re-elected. So.
Yeah.
Commenting on Russia, commenting on Ukraine, that's not going to help her get re-elected, and it could damage her. So that's what I think she's doing.
Mhm. And part of the reactions in foreign policy are so, of course, I'm not going to count internet comments on stories on the internet as a part of the mindset, but it's certainly there. And whatever Dilma and her government do can be seen as by some, of course, very far right people that as communist propaganda, as Putin leaning propaganda. I've seen loads of this, especially when Putin was in Brazil and she had her picture taken with him, and the plane accident, the plane attacked. In Ukraine, it was pretty much on the same day. So some people actually said, "Well, you're welcoming Vladimir Putin to Brazil at the exact time that happened in Ukraine." So I suppose she doesn't want to confuse the message in a way in the year of presidential re-election. But one question I'd like to ask you all: do you think that Brazil under Dilma is more self-centered than before, or not? Do you think that Brazil is opening bridges with the rest of the world in her term, or not really?
Definitely not. As Lucy said, when Lula was president, he was traveling all over the world, and he was exploring this road much more than she does.
Mm-hmm. Sam?
I haven't actually really got anything to say that hasn't already been said, to be quite honest.
The criticism of Lula actually was that he was never here in Brazil.
Yeah.
So people kept saying that this about Lula, and it was the spokesman for the foreign ministry there that said this dwarf commentary and dwarf diplomacy commentary, and I'm not sure Brazil answered this quite properly. But
Well,
okay,
no,
go ahead.
Brazil's answer to that was that Brazil is one of the it's a very small group of 11 nations that have relations to all the countries that are in the United Nations. So they said
Yeah,
the diplomats
and
said they
that
cannot be a diplomatic dwarf if they have relations with all these
yeah,
countries.
and that we were the first country to recognize Israel, the state of Israel, in 1948. And but the U.S. recognized it at the same day, and that's the thing here. Israel keeps violating the UN resolutions, but they do that because they have the U.S. on their side, and I think that it was important that Brazil summoned the ambassador there to consult what he you know that in the diplomatic sphere that has a value of protest, and you know that no one would say anything if that doesn't hurt in a when we summoned the ambassador, it was clear that they had to make some kind of response, and they did. And that shows that Brazil is not a dwarf per se, but it is true that Brazil is not that important, and it comes. Brazil is trying to find a place in the Security Council of the UN, isn't that right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's not it's not only the dwarf commentary. I think there is much more about this, and it is true that we deserve criticism because we didn't say anything about Russia and Ukraine. That's for sure. But I know that Brazil started something when they when our diplomacy summoned our ambassador. I think that was important. I think that the answer then I think that we got some quiet or shy responses, but not some player response.
Mm-hmm. And you can disagree, but my impression is that President Dilma showed the foreign agenda wasn't as important as the national one when she called off her state visit to the U.S. And although there were very serious issues involving her cancellation, that was also a sign that making amends with the U.S. was less important than showing the national public that that she had some pride to keep, that she needed to save face, and that whatever the relationship with the U.S. was, it wasn't as important as keeping high support in Brazil and making people understand that Brazil should not be messed with in a way. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and Mauricio, don't you think that as much as the U.S. I mean, this foreign agenda in an election year is not that important.
Yeah, and that's not only in Brazil, in the U.S. or
Yes,
in the UK, wherever.
exactly like that.
Unless you have soldiers abroad, for foreign policy is something that interests only us journalists during election years, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
It is fair to say. Should we move on to Rio?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was really good. I didn't really have anything to contribute there, which no one hasn't already said better already. But yeah, I think that's really good. So let's go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So the World Cup has finished, and now we have less than 2 years to prepare for the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, which are going to start on August the 5th of 2016. I can't wait for that to happen, and I can say, maybe you disagree, but I've been to 2 Olympic Games, and I can say the Olympics are at least 3 times bigger than the World Cup. One thing that was very interesting yesterday when the 2 year mark was reached is that one of the IOC members, which were very critical of Rio a few weeks ago, and we talked about that in the Brazil podcast, he now says that that Rio has major improvements for the Olympics. And I'd repeat my comment of a few weeks ago. We can never take whatever these people say for the face value, not when they say it's terrible, and not when they say it's doing that well. So, Leo and Sam, you are in Rio. Has the city already geared up for the Olympics, or are they still in the World Cup hangover?
No, they're
They
definitely still in World Cup hangover. I think. I don't know. I think the Olympics, from my perspective in Rio right now, just seems like some distant, far off thing that nobody's really considering yet, apart from the construction works in the papers, really.
they are so deep in the hangover that they don't know that they are having an election going. So
Maybe after the elections, they get some more attention. Is the city going through major construction works, or is that difficult to see at the moment?
Well, at the moment, today, in fact, absolutely today, in fact, right now, I think around 250 people, including journalists and all kinds of people related to the games, guests, businessmen, are being courted around by the IOC representatives, I believe, in Rio de Janeiro. Several of my journalistic colleagues are there today, actually, and they're being taken round to each stadium and being showed places to stay, hotels that will be ready, this kind of thing. And I believe at the moment something like only about 24% of the works are actually finished. So there's quite a lot of work to be done. We also have the issue with the pollution in the Guanabara Bay, which it was promised that at least 80% of the bay would be cleaned up for the Olympics, for the sailing. It seems that that's now not going to happen.
not even in a bit. There was there was the sailing test event this last weekend, and it was fun because everyone, even the athletes, of course, but the ones who organized, they were all mad about the pollution. It was amazing because anyone trying to sail in the Guanabara Bay was afraid because they found a dead dog. You know,
So far.
so far, it is furniture, some damaged furniture, and loads of plastic bags.
Yeah. Can
And
I ask a naive question about the sailing event? I mean, because it seems to me that how are they really going to clean it up unless they first sort out the problem with sewage runoff? So it's not just about cleaning up the bay, is it? It's about sewage infrastructure. So my question is there a reason they can't just move the sailing event up the coast a little bit to Buzios or to, down to...
Eduardo Paes will never take that. He'll never take that. This is his
That
project, his baby.
that
Yeah.
has been suggested, but that's exactly what they say, that you're never gonna take this from the Guanabara Bay, and it's amazing because it's such a bad publicity. The
Yeah.
Guanabara Bay is wonderful, it's lovely from the outside, but when you are inside, all the sewage goes there, and it's terrible. And it is, the photograph that Brazil has of itself, the image of Brazil, and at the same time we are doing this, and it's a bit of fun because when you think about I was listening to an important Brazilian athlete an important Brazilian gold medalist, which is Tobin Rael, and he was speaking about he was talking about everything that went wrong, and at the same time I was he is from my city, from Niterói. We are from across the pond. We have this. We had the same problems with the Guanabara Bay, and I was having fun imagining that his brothers, much of the Brazilian tradition in sailing, which is an important Olympic sport here in Brazil. Most of those guys were actually from Niterói, and they always sailed with these conditions. But even they were saying what an unnavigable, I don't know if that expression means something, but it was impossible to navigate on the Guanabara Bay this weekend, and it shows the lack of responsibility that we had when we made such a commitment of the pollution, or trying to solve 80% of the pollution of the Guanabara Bay.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Sorry. No, I was just going to add a couple of things. One of them is that there still is doubt on whether Rio should build one or two facilities that could actually process all the sewage that goes into the Guanabara Bay. And for the 80% limit to be reached, they would need both of them to be working at full throttle, and it doesn't seem to be the case. And the other one is that it is important to say that although the 80% barrier would be great, sailing is doable in less interesting conditions as well. I remember when I was covering the aquatic marathon at Hyde Park, they were pretty much using water that is no good for most people, but it's basically because you can actually use parts of the region which are less polluted. They actually have that, and for sailing they could actually find a kind of a track which is not as close to the exit of the sewage than other parts of the bay. So that's what they believe in, and that's why they think that they can be.
Sorry, Mauricio, but the athletes complain that even a plastic bag can slow down a boat, and that would be terrible for the competition.
Of course, no doubt. It would be a problem if they actually bump into one of these. But what I'm saying is that, and that's what they say at the city hall, is that although it's not perfect, it is still doable. Being doable doesn't mean it can be good. And of course, it would be a major blow if something happens during the competition and stops someone from winning, or if it gives trouble to anyone after the competition ends. But we'd have to wait and see if they are using both of the structures they were supposed to build or not. So another thing, Rio is going to be divided into 4 zones for the Olympics. They're using a big part of Barra da Tijuca, which looks like Miami, but it sits in Rio. They're using part of the Copacabana beach for competitions, including beach volleyball, which should be like the postcard of the Rio Olympics. They're using the bay for sailing competitions, but the main concern is an area called Deodoro, which is supposed to get the shooting events and BMX events and loads of other competitions, and that's the only one that actually sits in a I wouldn't say poor, but in a struggling neighborhood, and that has made many people think that the priorities for the Olympics have been basically the rich neighborhoods in Rio. Would you agree with that? Do you think that Rio is using the Olympics to make rich areas richer, and not making an Olympic Games that actually can integrate the whole city?
Well, that's the major criticism, but I have to add that Deodoro is a military area. Although it is, peripheral area, it is the military campus. There you can find the preparation for the Brazilian team used to be there also. They hold some, Parreira used to go there.
Who?
Carlos Alberto Parreira used to be a teacher there at the.
Well, I think there's no doubt that they want to hold the Olympics in beautiful, or so-called. I mean, I don't find Baja beautiful in the slightest. It's possibly the worst place in the city for me. But there's no doubt they want to hold the Olympics in so-called beautiful areas away from kind of like crumbling infrastructure, or perhaps mountains full of favelas. But also we want us to consider that there's a lot of space to develop in Baja, which, there isn't really space in Zona Norte of Rio, for example. There isn't really space to develop there, not without knocking down existing infrastructure or knocking down existing housing. So I think that's one of the main reasons for choosing Baja. Also, Baja is in many ways a developer's dream. It's kind of like the new Rio, the future Rio. It has this very Miami-based kind of feel to it. Public transport there is bad, although we do have the new bus rapid transit line which passes through there now. But it's a very Americanized model of, it's almost a city within a city, Baja. And, in many ways, like I say, it's a developer's dream. And so for those reasons, I think there's been a huge concentration on Baja, and specifically in Baja, you have you have a lot more space. Green. Sorry, I've already said that. I'm repeating myself now. Yeah, but we're going to have. Am I correct in thinking that we're going to have both of the golf courses in Baja, Leo? Is that correct?
Yes, it is. In my family, we have a joke that everyone wants to meet and wants to know and visit Rio, but no one wants to visit the De Janeiro part, and Deodoro is distant. So Deodoro is De Janeiro. Deodoro is an ugly place. It is, you go there by train. It's tough to visit. But and it is really distant. It is far from the south. The postcard part of Rio and the De Janeiro part. We joke that that's the De Janeiro, and Brazil will hold. Rio will hold. As little as possible events there.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Should we wrap up and check if the first topic was discussed?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Because I think Lucy has to go at noon, so let me just wrap up. Okay, so that's it for this week. Thanks to our guests. You've been listening to the Brazil Podcast. This week I leave you with Salve a Mulher Brasileira and Calma no Brasil. Okay. Should I stop this anyway, or should you check before, so we just...
you need to check it from your side because you're logged in with the Brazil Podcast,
Give me a second. It will be
absolutely quick. Sure. No worries.
Lucy, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy.
Thanks for your patience, because sometimes we have technical issues that we cannot do much about.
Of course. Well, anytime. I had fun, so
Good. You're more than welcome. Let me see my inscriptions. Canal. Nope. No. Let me just double check. I mean, just double check, but no. Because I think we open many windows, and maybe that's the issue.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. So should we discuss it briefly then? I'll try to do as quick as possible.
Yeah, sure. Let me just
Yeah?
give me 1 second, because my dialist is hoovering right outside the door. 1 second.
Okay, of course. Inferno isso aqui.
Yeah.
Sava, foi a parte das eleições, então, que a gente não fez?
Isso, que eu tentei gravar, ela não foi. Ela parou no começo e eu não sei quanto que gravou. Esse bobear não gravou nada mesmo. Eu vi aqui no YouTube e não subiu. Well, shall we kick off then? And then I'll do it as quickly as possible. So, can I go?
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Let's go.
Lucy? Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So it's been just over a month since election season kicked off in Brazil, with governor and presidential hopefuls launching their campaigns. The election will be held on the 5th of October, and if no one receives more than 50% of the first vote for presidency, a runoff will be held on the 22nd of October. The three main contenders for the presidency are incumbent Dilma Rousseff of the PT, or the Workers' Party, Aécio Neves of the PSDB, which is more right of the center, and Eduardo Campos, the former governor of Pernambuco State, of PSB, which is a centrist party. So, Lucy, you are in Brasilia. This is the political heartland of Brazil. Is any action going on there?
There is ordinary election action in that people are giving out flyers and bumper stickers, and we're starting to see posters around. But actually, Brasilia is reasonably quiet at the moment because of a lot of the people who are contesting their seats in October, congressmen and so forth. They've headed back to their states to campaign there, so it's not too frantic here at the moment.
I see, and the interest there, I suppose, is more with the state race than with the national one. Is it noticeable that there is a state election at the moment there?
I'm seeing more posters and things, flyers about the governor, the DFE governor race. So we've got Agnello Queiroz and Jose Arruda, and they're the two front runners.
And that's going to be very interesting, because the man who is leading the race in Brasilia is a great symbol of Brazilian politics, because José Roberto Arruda is actually the first governor ever to be arrested during his term. So that was a few years ago, and now he's back to, I don't know what he's promising, to be very honest, but I suppose that's a big symbol there in Brasilia. Are people okay with the governor that was arrested for corruption going back to office?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was corruption, wasn't it? He was part of the DFE Mensalão back in 2009. People are a little bit fatigued, I think, with corruption scandals. But he's at the front of the polls. He's got something like 33% in the latest polls. So clearly a lot of people are okay with it.
So and in Rio, it's also another interesting state election, because the four people who are well in the polls, they are very controversial figures. So I'd like to know from you, Sam, from you, Leo, what's the race like in Rio?
Well, Anthony Garotinho is winning the race at the moment, and if we know, Garotinho was a former governor of Rio de Janeiro who was involved in all kinds of corruption scandals. Garotinho was the champion of the popular restaurant in Rio de Janeiro, where you can buy a meal for R$1. Now, Garotinho got lots of money, I believe, from the federal government to open a whole string. I believe he got money enough to open 90 restauranti populares, and in the end, I think he opened 4 or something like this. So Garotinho is he's always struggled with accusations of corruption for a while. His wife Rosanna had to take over from office for him because he wasn't allowed to run.
Rosinha,
because he wasn't allowed to govern. Leo, why don't you introduce our second candidate?
Just for a moment, Garotinho and Rosinha Garotinho is the mayor of Campos, a city in the northeast of the state, and there was the first place the Garotinho was elected, and he always had such a difficult time coping with reality. He always says that, oh, we did lots of popular restaurants, and as you said, not even not even 10. And so he always do that kind of thing. He says things disproportional with his realizations. Second place is Crivella. I think you have a fun anecdote about his current speeches, Sam.
So not very different from Garotinho in a way. Very much a focus on the poor of the interior, trying to get a populist vote by promising things and never generally not coming through with them. But Mr. Crivelli had a wonderful. He came out with something wonderful recently in an interview. He said, because is he an evangelical pastor, or is he a head of a church, or is he just?
Yes, he is.
He's a pastor as well. So he said that homosexuality is not a crime, but it is a sin, and that we must invest in the interior so that people don't come to the capital to steal. As if there's no other reason to invest in the interior, you know.
Well,
the interior of Rio de Janeiro.
Maybe that's a swipe at Garotinho because he comes from the interior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Garotinho does come to the capital to steal, so, you know.
I don't know if we're allowed to say that, man.
Perhaps not. I can edit it out. I'll see how we feel.
That would be better.
But Garotinho is we have to add that Garotinho used to be a radio figure, and he stole the nickname from a popular
a sports commentator,
commentator, and he used to be a sports commentator at first, and then he started his election, and his conversion to some kind of a religious figure. It's really a thing that it's not that long.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the guy that demoralized hunger strikes.
Exactly.
You can say something about this, Maurice.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if we're going to use this in the podcast, but Garotinho is.
I think we can.
Garotinho is such an interesting figure of Brazilian politics that I like to say he demoralized the hunger strike, because in 2006 he wanted to be a candidate for the presidency and his party wouldn't let him to. So he went on a hunger strike, allegedly a hunger strike, but people in the middle of the night could see, because he had a glassed window, they could see his wife bringing him pizza in the middle of the night. So that he demoralized the hunger strike, and no politician went on a hunger strike since then.
But I am on a junkie food strike.
Good. That's probably better. But one thing, we're basically talking about the state elections because it shows a bit of the mindset of people going to the polls. So even people saying that they're tired of corruption and that Brazil has to reform in a way that halts corruption. In a way, they keep voting for the same bizarre figures and the same controversial figures which have been involved in corruption cases. That's a very interesting thing. But
Mauricio, we are still talking about religious figures and their involvement with the Rio de Janeiro state government election. The third guy is Lindbergh Farias, and he is supposedly the left-leaning candidate, but you already said to us before the recording that he made an interesting alliance
Yeah, he made an alliance with the far-right pastor Silas Malafaia, which shows that, especially in Rio, you need to have a bond with the religious community to actually have a better shot of going to the state government. And that happened also to the fourth candidate of this race, which is the governor Luis Pezão, who very interesting. It's very interesting to see that the guy who is the fourth in the race at this moment could actually end up winning the election because of the rejection levels of all the other candidates. And Pezão is actually related to Sérgio Cabral, who is the former governor of Rio, one of the main targets of the protest last year. And that actually brings me to my question to you guys. Are we seeing any protester agenda coming to the general elections? Because, I mean, Pezão is considered the favorite to win the elections in Rio. José Roberto Arruda in Brasilia, who is the former governor who was arrested, he's leading the polls, and I suppose he's not running on an anti-corruption platform. Do you think any of the agenda of the protesters have definitely set in for the presidential elections? Lucy, what would you say?
I think they have, yeah. I think that we saw on Monday Aécio Neves. He told reporters that he was considering a wealth tax, and coming from him, this is quite surprising. And I think you can read it as a concession towards protesters who believe public services are bad and that they don't adequately provide Brazil's poor and working and middle class people with good enough hospitals and good enough education and good enough security. So I think that was a concession from him. And we saw a couple of months ago, I think it was actually before campaigning officially started, but Dilma, yeah, it was on Labor Day. It was on 1st of May. She, in her Labor Day speech, she announced that she was increasing the Bolsa Familia money. So I think that was also not necessarily a direct response to the protests, but definitely a way of shoring up her support from that group of people.
I see. But did you guys see any protests taking place until the elections, or not really?
Nothing more than the kind of like small protests that have been taking place generally since June 2013. Obviously, not include. Sorry, let me rephrase that. That's going to sound bad otherwise. Not apart from small pockets of protests that have been occurring all year, bar a few more sizable ones. Yeah, I think we might see some action more from like the landless movements and the homeless movements and the organised social movements, the organised lefts. But I don't think we're going to see huge protests. I don't think Brazil's going to burn. No.
It depends. Elections many times here appear as a great platform to strikes and protests and all of that directly connected with the elections. But it depends on the it is highly unstable, as many things here are. It depends on August. It depends on the start of the campaign. It depends on so many things that we can't say for sure that there will be protests. But I wouldn't be surprised if some strikes, some suspect strikes also appear.
I think absolutely. I think you're right there, Leo. I think there'll be kind of, not to sound cynical, but when I say opportunist strikes, opportunist protests from groups that are hoping to achieve something. But in terms of kind of like the unorganized protest without clear and coherent goals and ambitions that we've seen this year, I don't think we're going to see so many.
I agree with you. I mean, there will not be a protest like there was last year.
And just to wrap up, one thing that also counts for the presidential election, especially, is the attention that TV Global gives to them, and that starts this week when they have at least a minute, a clip in the national news, Jornal Nacional, which is the most important one in the country, to talk about their proposals, to talk about what they think, and to show where they're going. And TV in Brazil is so important that it also makes the political allegiances to come out. So the more parties you have in your coalition running for president, the more time you will have in something very specific of Brazil, which is the free time on TV. That's going to start in a couple of weeks. So candidates for the presidency and for the state governments, they are going to have loads of time on TV at noon and at night during primetime television to talk about their ideas, to do their whole propaganda. Dilma Rousseff is going to have about 10 minutes on TV because that represents the amount of people in her coalition, in Congress, of course, the amount of congressmen that are on her side. Aécio Neves is going to have about 5 minutes, and Eduardo Campos is going to have about 4, and that's going to last until the end of the first round. For the second vote, if there is one, it's going to be different. They're going to split half-half, whoever is in the next ballot. My question to you is, how important is TV for Brazilians in the presidential elections?
It's crucial, I think. I think it's really, really important. It's quite easy for us in Brasilia and Rio and Sao Paulo, especially in Brasilia, the little bubble of very kind of people who work in government and are very well informed. It's quite easy to forget that the vast majority of Brazilians get most of their information from the TV, most of their news from the TV. So I think it's really, really important. And Dilma has obviously a big advantage there. But then Neves has the advantage of being someone different. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's massively important. It's, as Lucy says, the majority of people in the interior, they might not have access to newspapers, but they certainly have access to TV. So it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how Aécio plays his game. I mean, at the moment, he seems to be trying to court both sides. He seems to be trying to say to the working class vote, look, vote for me. I'm not going to cut Bolsa Familia. I'm not going to cut Cuban doctors. But this is what his core supporter base on the other side of the fence of the elite. These are things that they're against, and it's going to be very interesting. He's trying to play a kind of like more market-friendly, market-focused game, a faster Brazil, a more agile Brazil. He's trying to play up to these kind of narratives, trying to use the kind of bureaucracy and high taxes, high import tax, this kind of thing. He's trying to use this to his gain in his campaign.
Yeah,
sorry, Mauricio. That is important for the elections also. I mean, big players here, they don't start campaigning with what they are against. They try to say the least that can harm them. So they will not be completely against everything. That's not the way it works here.
That makes sense. And just to wrap up, Aécio Neves will have to make the case of if his change, what kind of change does he mean? Because in the polls, Brazilians have shown massive interest for change, but so far, although President Dilma Rousseff has lost some support during the last year or so, she's still the favorite to win the re-election, and she could still do it in the first round as the polls suggest. So it's going to be very interesting few weeks to see how that plays out. Guys, I think that's it.
Yeah, great. That's great. That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Thanks for all the patience. I'm sorry for the mistakes. Technical issues come every now and then. It's the first time we do the podcast at this time of the day, so we probably know that the connection is more unstable than we'd like. Lucy, thank you so much. We hope to have you back in the future.
No, thanks for having me, and anytime. It was fun.
Cheers, Lucy. Have a nice holiday.
Exactly that.
Exactly.
Enjoy that for us.
I will. I'll be back on in September, so give me a shout then. I'll come back on.
We're gonna have much to talk about because the elections are for the Senate, for the Congress, for everything.
And if you come via São Paulo, let me know so we can buy you a drink.
Definitely. All right, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks. Take it easy. Bye bye.